Hi, I'm Michelle and I'm YPARD's Global Mentoring Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Sarah Dixon-Hoyle. I'm the former mentoring coordinator with the Youth and Landscapes Initiative and the International Forestry Students Association. And I'm also a member of an Australian committee called the Future Foresters Initiative.
And today, Sarah and I are talking about finding resources. So, Sarah, you've been involved in coordinating a number of different forestry conference mentoring programs, and you've taken different approaches based on the resources that have been available to you for those different programs. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Sure. So I was involved in running actually a broader young professional program at a forestry conference in Cairns in Australia last year, so in 2017. And as part of this, because of my involvement in running event-based mentoring programs at an international level, we thought we'd run an event-based program at this conference. So we actually wanted to take advantage of the fact that there were some young students and young professionals who got funding from the universities to attend this conference up in Cairns, and that there'd be a large group of senior forestry professionals and researchers there. So we didn't actually need to provide any funding to bring these people together. What we wanted to do was just to provide a workshop and an introduction and set up the framework to match these students or young professionals with the senior professional for the duration of the conference. We didn't actually have any funding provided to us. I was part of the conference organising committee, but it was being run on quite a tight budget. And all they were actually able to provide was a venue space in the conference venue to hold this initial workshop. All the other workshops that were being run at that time had, additional catering and funding associated with them, but all they could provide was the room itself. So we wanted to run not just this workshop where we brought people together, but also a bit of a networking session, because there were actually in this case, lots of senior professionals who were interested in being involved, more than we had space for. But again, to run a networking session, have some sort of cocktail, we needed a bit of funding for that. So in the end, we reached out to a few small forestry companies and just got a really small amount, just a couple of $100, which provided for some soft drinks and tea and coffee and some snacks. And really, in the end, that's actually all we needed. It really just came down to having a few people volunteering their time to help set up the matching process, the conference organisers just giving us a room off to the side, and then a really small amount of money just to provide for some catering. And it worked really, really well.
Can you tell us a little bit about how did you frame the opportunity for those businesses to sponsor the event?
I think in Australia, and this is probably not just unique to Australia, there's increasingly fewer people going in and studying forestry. So there's a real concern in the industry that there's not young people coming through universities. A lot of the old technical training courses don't exist anymore. So it's something that industry is really aware of. Where are we going to get young foresters coming from? How can we provide sort of training and professional development opportunities for the young foresters who are coming in? And how can we, as a business, potentially reach out to them? So we really framed it around that, around this is an opportunity to support the development of young foresters who are coming in, just starting their career, or potentially are studying and not really sure where they're wanting to go in their career. So that was something that was really well received, and we've had a lot of support by taking that approach.
So seems to be about knowing what they want and need and framing your request around that, serving that need.
Yeah.
And would you say that your understanding of that need is based on just your experience in the sector, or if you didn't know what that was about, how would you go about researching that? Do you have any?
I think that need is very much come through engagement with this industry body. So that conference in Cairns was run by the Australian Forest Industry Body, and the committee that I'm part of, which is why I was involved in the youth event, is a committee that sits under that Australian industry body. So that's the topic of discussion that's on their agenda quite a lot. Also through talking with academics, former professors when I went through forestry school, that's something they're very aware of. So again, it's thinking about what context are you working in? Who are the people that you're talking with? What knowledge might they have of the sector that you're trying to reach out to, and the people who you're trying to involve in your program, and then tapping into that knowledge.
Great.
Yeah.
And then more broadly, what advice would you have for other mentoring coordinators who might be struggling to find resources for their mentoring programs?
I think there's a few, I guess, different pieces of advice I could have. One piece of advice is you can actually do quite a lot on very limited resources. In that example that I just spoke about, we did get a very small amount of funding for, some catering, but I've run a lot of mentoring programs that run off really just people's goodwill, volunteer time and energy. And then if we have some sort of face-to-face interaction, maybe if it's at a conference, there's already an event space there. So it's just in-kind donation, and you can really run off very limited resources, and particularly with the steps and the resources that we've developed to run event-based programs. Once we developed that the first time, now it's actually quite easy, and we've got a really good system in process, and we've been able to roll that out to other conferences without actually taking too much time. So I guess that's one way. Obviously, though, you're limited in what you can do without resources. It's hard to run a big orientation workshop or skills training. So another example is trying to think about what other programs and funding there is in your, I guess, broader sector. So with this industry association that I'm a part of, they actually access some funding from the government to run youth leadership programs in forestry. So they had this pot of money, and they were actually looking to us for advice on what would be some really great ways they can target that funding and resources. So we identified that as an opportunity and pitched to them, well, look, we have this experience in running mentoring programs. How about you incorporate that into your proposal to the government? So they accepted that, and that now means that we actually have some guaranteed funding for future events. So the next conference, not only can we do a small networking session, we have funding to get a trainer to come in, to do some leadership training. We can actually provide funding for students to come from interstate. So we can actually scale it up a lot more. And that was really just because, again, we were communicating with this industry body. We had some connections who could advise us that this grant was coming up. And we really strategically pitched to them saying, here's something that we can contribute to your chances of getting this funding, and we can implement it for you.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks, Michelle.